Welcome to Women, Wisdom and Wealth. My name is Davida and Claudine, and I'm here on the show with Claudine Reid. And on today's program, we'll be sharing about how you can fund your vision. So this show is actually titled How Funding Your Vision. Now, just to tell you a little bit about Women, Wisdom and Wealth. Women, Wisdom and Wealth is a program for Christian women entrepreneurs. And the whole idea of having this program is so that women can be empowered financially. Women have a lot of challenges financially. What we find is that a lot of women end up having to carry the financial challenges of the family at different stages in their life. And if they're not well prepared for this, it could be a very devastating time of their life. And because women are closely linked with the children and the support, the family unit, what happens to a woman would eventually affect her home. So basically what we do on this program is we help you as a woman get empowered financially, change your thinking about finances so that you, your family unit can be well taken care of. And also because we're a Christian program, we also look at empowering you so that you can fulfill your vision and for the general purpose of the Great Commission. Now, if you would like to know how you can be kept in the loop with regards to these programs, you can visit us on www.kingdomwealthcreation.com. And when you get there, there's a free ebook you can sign up for. If you look at the top of the menu bar, there would be a link that says free ebook. You can sign up for that free ebook. It's a great one, and that would add you to our mailing list, and you'll be kept in the loop with other similar webcasts and other events that we have throughout the year. Now, I'm going to introduce my guest, Claudine, and I'm going to do that briefly. And after that, she'll be able to tell you a lot more about herself. Okay, so Claudine is a well-accomplished woman in business. She was voted as one of the top 100 women entrepreneurs by Real Business Magazine in 2008. Claudine Reid, MBA, is actually considered to be one of the most inspirational women of the time. She's one of the most inspirational women in this space in the UK. Now, in addition to her role as a director of a multi-award-winning social enterprise, PJ's Community Service, an organization that provides services to enhance and transform communities by providing care, education, and enterprise support. Claudine is a trainer, a TV and radio show presenter, and a trustee at a London-based radio station. Now, I'm going to give Claudine a few minutes now to introduce herself. So can you tell our guests about yourself briefly, Claudine?
I certainly will. And first of all, let me just start by saying thank you very much for inviting me onto your platform so I can share and hopefully inspire and motivate and share some key information with your listeners. So my name's Claudine Reid, and for the last 20 years, I've been running a multi-award-winning social enterprise with my team of staff, with my husband. We have had excellent opportunities. We've had some very high highs and some very low lows. I've lived to tell the tale. As well as running my business, I'm also a wife, a mother. I have 2 teenage children, an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old. I'm very involved in the community. I believe my philosophy in life is around balancing fitness, faith, family, and finance, and everything I do from a business and a personal perspective fits into one of those 4 fundamental pillars, I believe, which allows me to maintain that balance. So the majority of my time is spent running the business, ensuring that it's sustainable, ensuring that we are running according to the legal parameters and frameworks. But at the same time, I also have the opportunity to leverage other types of opportunities. So I'm also a government advisor. You read on my profile, I'm also a TV commentator. I've hosted TV shows, I've hosted radio shows, and I'm exploring. I've just launched my international business platform. I've been running a number of women's events in Jamaica and in Europe. This year, next year, rather, 2017, we're going to Ghana. We're connecting with female entrepreneurs, and really the impetus is about empowerment.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Claudine. Now, the next question is actually closely related to that one, and it's basically for you to tell us why you went into entrepreneurship in the first place.
I think that's always a very interesting question, Davida, and it probably was a subconscious journey. I was living in Europe whilst I was doing my business degree. And when I returned back from Europe to come back home, as part of my studies, I needed to work in order to complete my course. And I said to my friend, you need to find me a job. And he said to me, don't worry, my brother has just started a business. So my friend introduced me to his brother who had just started a business. I started working for the business. My friend's brother told me that I was so good that he didn't want me to leave, so he proposed to me. We got married and I stayed. That's my unconventional journey into enterprise. Whilst I was here, I found that I had a knack. I had a love for developing social enterprising strategies that really was about community transformation. During that process, really, I had a little bit of a identity crisis, if you like. I left the business for a year thinking that I wanted to go into education. And I think it was during that 1 year away that I really had the opportunity to find my purpose and find where I really ought to be. I came back to the business after a year, totally re-energized, totally revitalized, totally, just oozing with ideas, because I had the opportunity to really see where I believe that my real kingdom assignment was, if you like. So my journey into enterprise wasn't very conventional, but I think it had a bit of divine purpose, and along the route I've learned an awful lot.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned, well, I haven't mentioned it to our guests yet, but Claudine, like she's mentioned already, is very involved in the social enterprise arena. And a lot of what we're talking about today, maybe a lot of the questions and the answers she might be giving today I guess would be touching on what it means to run a social enterprise or have a social enterprise. Now, I started a social enterprise a little while ago, but that's a different story, maybe another a story for another day. I think my interest in the social enterprise was because as a Christian, I wanted to impact, because you're driven by mission. You're highly driven by mission. So looking for a vehicle that would enable me to do that. And I remember telling you yesterday that I was part of a co-op for a long while. So that was a very mission-driven organization, even though it was a computing organization in London. Yeah. So what I'm just probably trying to put across to our people is, because we're talking about Christians, and I think one thing I've noticed when Christians are thinking about business is they think about the mission a lot, but then making that a viable project is one of the challenges that they have, turning something that might seem to be a mission, maybe not a conventional, maybe something that's not conventionally business or conventionally a profitable area, or an area that people might go into for business, turning that into something that might be able to help them generate a lot of profit. So what I'll do now is to go into our first question, and it's a question from a guest from one of our previous shows, and it's this. She says, "I left my employer to pursue ministry full time. I run a non-profit organization. I'm interested in finding a way to support the ministry besides as grants. I guess I'm saying, how can I create a social venture enterprise?" So she has a ministry, and she's just thinking, she doesn't want to be dependent on grants. So what can a person in that kind of situation do?
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent question, and it's one of the things that people, Christians, believers, often struggle with, in that they want to do good, they want to impact the community, but the challenge will always be, where does the finance come from? I'm a firm believer that money follows mission. Okay. So you have a mission focus, but we also need to have a very balanced financial strategy to support that mission. I found through the 20 years of running my business, and let me just add, next year, 17, we celebrate 25 years of running the business. So the business was already running when I joined in 1995. So over the last 20 years that I've actually been here, I've been in a position to advise many people about how to slowly transition from being in a full-time employment or generating income that supports the mission that you want to serve. And ultimately, people buy into results, they buy into transformation, they buy into change. And so if you're thinking about supporting a ministry, we must be able to use the platforms that are available to us, whether that be social media, whether it be face-to-face communications, whether it be testimonials from your client group. But we must be able to use testimonials in order to use those to create a buzz, to create good, positive messages about the work that we're wanting to do. It's at that point that money or philanthropists or corporate organizations will look at what you're doing and see how can they attach themselves, perhaps even using their corporate social responsibility agenda. How can they use their CSR, corporate social responsibility agenda, to tag along or support your mission? So your mission may be somebody else's sideline, and this is really about partnership working. It's about finding people who are of a like mind, similar values, and using them in order to further the work that you're wanting to do. So the transition isn't always easy, because what you're looking for is to find people with similar ethics or similar values, but it's not impossible. And sometimes it's also important to explore other avenues that you haven't explored in the first instance. One avenue that has been of great success or great benefit to my business is the business to government relationships. For 18 years, my main customer was government. It was local authorities. They were buying services from us. We were selling home care services. We were selling health and social care services. When we became experts in that arena, we then moved on to schools and colleges. So our clients became institutions. There was minimal challenge with payments. Okay, sometimes it'll take a long time to pay, but it was guaranteed. And when you're dealing with financial institutions, the main thing that they want to know is, do your customers pay? When they are institutions, they'll be a little bit more lenient because of, the local authority is not going to be declared bankrupt, as opposed to if it was a private individual who may not have the financial security when you're doing business with them. So explore different avenues of doing business as opposed to being 100% reliant on grant funding. Explore explore government relationships, explore business to business relationships in order to build up your portfolio, because that's the ultimate aim, is to diversify your income portfolio so that you're not only reliant on one strand or one stream of income coming into your business.
Interesting. You've mentioned a few interesting points there, and I think a few things I'm picking up from what you've said is that I don't know, that's my interpretation of it. I don't want to say that that's exactly what you said, but because every government would have their agenda. So basically looking for ways to help them carry out their agenda by maybe providing services that they're interested in. So kind of aligning yourself with what they're doing. You know, it could be your vision, it could be what you have in your heart to do.
Absolutely. So lots of that work will be about research and finding out what is government agenda, whether you're looking at a local or a regional or a countrywide, a national, or even an international region. Have a look at what the government agenda or the governing territory agenda is for that particular location that you're wanting to work. And if your mission is in alignment with their agenda, then it opens the door for further conversations. And what those conversations could potentially look like is that if your mission is around working with disadvantaged communities, if it's around working with homeless people, if it's around working with ex-offenders, vulnerable adults, children at risk, if it's something to do with education, media, business, government, then have those conversations, because ultimately people buy results. Ultimately, that's all they want to know. Can you deliver what it says on the tin?
Yeah, and they're looking to buy services. They're looking for service providers that could deliver at the end of the day, you know. So yeah, so it's getting that alignment. So it's basically not you as a Christian woman abandoning what you have in your heart to do. It's following what you have in your heart to do, whatever the Lord has placed in your heart to do, but looking out there and finding out, you know, what, because generally what we want to do, and most of the time, some of the services that we want to provide are things that the community already needs, you know. So it can be, sometimes it can be challenging finding that match, but it's very possible from what Claudine is saying. And I know a few other people who operate in that arena as well.
Yeah. I mean, if I may add, Davida, I think part of this has to be mandatory, that we think outside of the box and we think creatively and innovatively. Part of my mandate is about empowerment. Empowerment is not only about speaking to people, it's about providing jobs, it's about providing opportunities. So I feel that I'm still meeting my God-given purpose in empowering people by providing jobs.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Then the other thing, I was making a few notes as you were talking. So the other thing that came across to me was like it's like providing mainstream services in most of the time. Maybe things for the elderly, for young people, children in care. You know, those are areas that there's money, there's already funding available. There's money available for those kind of projects or businesses. Then it's interesting that you said money follows mission, because I know that's probably different schools of thoughts on that. You know, some people probably try to follow the money, you know, and some people have tried to, I mean, I've talked to a lot of Christians who've tried to follow the mission, but the money hasn't come. So what might be the reason for that? So they've tried to follow the mission, they've tried to pursue the mission, but the money hasn't kind of followed. So what could be standing in the way?
I think if we try and think about this as a balancing act, and there are a number of elements, I believe, that need to be balanced. So Ken Blanchard, he's the author of the 1 Minute Manager series of books. He also has a very popular book called Lead Like Jesus. And in his discourse...
Lead Like Jesus, did you say?
Lead Like Jesus, yes. And in his discourse, Ken speaks of the 4H principle. The first H is about heart. Jesus came with a heart mission. And if you speak to many entrepreneurs or many faith-based Christian entrepreneurs, they start with a mission focus, and it stops right there. They'll say things to me, or to even to yourself, Davida, things like, oh, you know, my mission is to work with the homeless people, or my mission is to work with ex-offenders, or whatever their mission focus may be. And 9 times out of 10, the mission stops right there. The second H stands for head. Head speaks of strategy. You may have an idea or a vision, or you believe that God has spoken to you to work with communities and to bring about transformation and to start a kingdom business, but you must have a strategy. Jesus had a strategy. He came to, he started his ministry, and in the last 3 years, he set up a system in place that his ministry lasted longer than which he was here. That strategy, it's about people, it's about growing, it's about developing people, it's about mentoring them, it's about ensuring that they have the right attitude and heart in order to carry on your vision when you're not here. That's how we grow our businesses. The third H speaks of hands. What do you actually do on a day-to-day basis? So if you're talking about mission-focused business, that's fine. What do you do? What's the end result? We can see very clearly the end result of what Jesus' ministry was about. It was about saving souls. It was about healing sick. It was about the ministry of reconciliation. It was about bringing people to a relationship with God the Father. But you could see what he actually did. The Bible speaks very clearly about the work that he did, the miracles that he performed, and how it brought people closer into relationship with him. The fourth H speaks of habits. Habits speak of what do we do as individuals to get our own empowerment? What do we learn? Where do we get our replenishment? We're giving so much from a mission perspective, but what habits of replenishment do you have? Jesus' habits for replenishment was steeped in prayer. It was steeped in communication with his Father in order to receive wisdom, in order to receive direction, in order to receive strategy. So Ken Blanchard puts those four elements together. So you ask the question, what could be the potential deficiency as to why the money hasn't come? Because sometimes I believe we are mission heavy focused without the balance of head, heart, hands and habits.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that if it's a lot, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. So I think it's something that one would have to either sit back and try to think about, and if people want to get the book, what's the book called again?
It's called Lead Like Jesus, okay. Lead Like Jesus, and the author is Ken Blanchard.
I haven't seen that one. Interesting. It sounds very interesting. I'll definitely be getting it. Okay. Yeah, so I'll go to my second question now.
Okay.
I have it here on my screen. Okay. So the second question goes like this. I want to create a social enterprise. In what situation is it best to start one? I'm asking, when would you use a social enterprise over a privately owned company or business?
That's a very interesting question. And I think, it really depends on what the end goal is for the organization. Okay. For example, my business, we started out as a private limited company and we evolved into social enterprise because all of our work was very much mission focused. Whilst it wasn't necessarily attached to a church organization, but both my husband and I are very dedicated to ministry. We're very dedicated to our local church. We're heavily involved in our local church regionally, nationally and internationally. So our business became an extension of how we were able to become, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term marketplace ministers.
Oh, definitely.
Our mission may not necessarily have been to be ushers or worship leaders or musicians, but our role was very much ingrained in the community to replicate what does Jesus look like to the community. There are some people who we want to serve who may never make it to the four walls of our church. Does that mean they'll never ever hear the gospel? And furthermore, can we present Jesus in a different way that they can still understand the love of God through the development or through the delivery of the service of your business? So back to the question of the transition of how do we start that business and whether or not it should be a social enterprise or a private limited company. I really think it's about the ultimate purpose and the ultimate goal of what the entrepreneur or the business owner wants to be able to achieve.
Okay.
And there are many, it's really not a one fit answer. There are many different variables. Is this about wealth creation, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If it's about wealth creation, perhaps social enterprise may not be the route to go. If it's about serving people, I think that's the best business model. I'm very biased. It's the best kingdom business model, because it allows you, the business model allows you to generate an income. It allows you to pay the directors, the staff, as well as generate a profit or a surplus. And it's with that surplus, I believe, that you're able to carry out more mission-focused work. Mission-focused work, just because it's good work, doesn't mean that it's free. Yeah. Just because it's good work and it's benefiting or adding value to the kingdom, you still need resource, you still need skilled people, you still need people who have studied to show themselves approved in order to deliver the service. We still have legal parameters and frameworks that we have to be able to work within, and all of this costs money.
I think, in terms of the impact, when it comes to social enterprise, the impact can be probably higher socially if you're measuring it that way, in terms of what it's giving back into the community, either in service or either in people development.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the interesting points is that we have a framework which is called SROI, the social return on investment. And if you look at some of the mission-focused work that people start, and if you think about, if this business or social enterprise wasn't here, what would the impact on the community be? For example, I was doing a huge piece of work a couple of years ago, and it was round about, I think, 2010, when they had informed me, the criminal justice system had informed me that the cost of one prison place to the state was £64,000. Now, there are organisations, for example, working with ex-offenders, ensuring that they are rehabilitated and they are able to reintegrate back into the community, as opposed to going into the criminal justice system, which costs £64,000. The return on that investment, socially, financially, emotionally, mentally, and even for the local environment, the local community, decrease in crime statistics, and how people being able to contribute into society. I think the social return, sometimes it's difficult to quantify, but it's just as important as the financial return.
Yes, I think that's very important. I mean, recently I've been reading about some African countries a lot more, and I could see that there's so many social problems that, a similar initiative would be able to solve, if people are not just thinking of making money for themselves and looking for ways to provide jobs and provide jobs for the community and empower people. It would stop, because what you find in some of these countries, people are university graduates and they haven't got jobs, and they end up being armed robbers and so on and so forth. Yeah. And the impact on the society is quite high, because those who are trying to live normal lives can't even, they're not living, they're not free, because, they have to try to keep safe and everything. So, if people think beyond themselves, when people are thinking business, I think that's one of the advantages that's coming across. When you're thinking business, you're not just thinking of the returns that you as a business owner would be getting. You'll be thinking more of the social impact, how you're going to impact society as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're thinking business owner, I think it encourages people to think generationally. I think it encourages them to think about their legacy. The Bible declares that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And I think that having a business allows you to leave that inheritance for your children's children, because really what a business says, I have set up a system that works with or without me. If it works with or without me, then that means it should carry on long after I've gone. But that can only happen when the focus is on creating a framework or creating a system that doesn't operate around your ego, doesn't operate around you as an individual. Of course you're driving it, and of course you're making the ultimate decisions around ownership, accountability, and control. But ultimately, my role, my personal goal, is to work myself out of a job. That means I would have prepared generationally for my grandchildren who aren't even born yet.
Yeah, but when I was saying business owners, I wasn't talking in the social enterprise sense of it. You know, I was.
No, I think it's a generic term.
I know it's a general. Yeah, it's generic. Yeah.
I mean, when we say social enterprise, I think we use the term interchangeably because you still need to have a strong, stable, robust business framework. Because it's doing mission work doesn't take away the fact that it needs to have a strong strategy. The 4 H's that I referred back to earlier on, whether it's a social enterprise or it's a trading business that's about, you know, generating wealth for the shareholders, nothing wrong with that business model, but it still needs a mission, it still needs the strategy, it still needs to understand what the methodology, and it still needs to understand how do we replenish ourselves as business owners or entrepreneurs.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll go to the next question.
Okay.
Okay. So this person is saying, I've considered applying for funding for my God-given vision, but I'm greatly concerned about losing control of my project to stakeholders. Is this a legitimate fear, and can anything be done to mitigate such a risk?
Is fear legitimate? Very interesting question. I'm reminded of the parable of the talents. To one he gave 5, to another he gave 2, and to another he gave 1. And that a servant who received the 1 talent, his excuse was, I was afraid, I didn't know what to do, so I buried it. The master's response was, you wicked, lazy, slothful servant. You knew that I was coming back for a reward, for a return, and you've hid this because of fear. For as much as we believe that fear is legitimate, there is a higher purpose, I think, that we've been called to. Now, I would challenge I'm not one who's ever relied on grant funding to build our business. And if this is God-given, then surely there must be other ways, I believe, of generating or creating the finance that's required in order to get the business started. Because when we start applying for grant funding is not guaranteed. And they may fund your idea for the first year, but it's not guaranteed for the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year. So if somebody is saying to me, this is a God-given idea, and you've been successful in a funding application for 1 year, what happens in year 2, 3, 4, 5, and what happens to that generational blessing? I think the fear is legitimate, but my response would be expand on that, speak to other people, get around people with vision, find out what other people have done. You know, if the minute we start relying only on one source of income, I think we almost set ourselves up for a challenging scenario. Explore diversification strategies, explore different opportunities, explore partnership arrangements whereby you're delivering an element of service and somebody else could be delivering a different element of that service. Explore collaborations, explore partnerships. There is so much strength in unity and in partnerships. I think the fear is legitimate, but I think if we only pigeonhole ourselves into one area, I think we set ourselves up for failure.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the question to make sure that one, okay. But in terms of the stakeholders, okay, so in terms of, if you're thinking about getting a grant, is there cause to be concerned in the initial stages of a business or setting up a business, even though you might not, you might think of other strategies for sustaining yourself at a later stage? Would, for instance, in your first year, if you end up with grants, would that really impair the, or would they have that kind of control over the direction of the business because they've given you the initial grant?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I mean, they'd ask lots of questions, but so would a bank manager if you were asking for a loan. So would your family members or a friend if you were asking them for a loan. I don't think it's not about control. It's just about ensuring that the money, the grant funding that you've received is used for the purpose in which you said you were going to use it. So expect questions. Expect there to be monitoring and evaluation of how the money has actually been spent.
Yeah.
I don't think there's not at that particular startup stage. There may be recommendations, but it's just a recommendation, and as long as you can demonstrate why you've opted not to follow that recommendation and you have a perfectly legitimate reason or rationale for not going in that particular direction, that there's not too much there's not too much cause for concern in that particular scenario. I think one thing that we do 100% must be aware of is that if you're applying for grant funding, the fund is used for the purpose of which you said it's going to be used.
That's important, yeah. That's your credibility anyway.
Absolutely.
Okay, I've got a few more questions here. I just scroll up my screen. Okay. So, for instance, if you, like the last question was about, getting funding, being funded. So what would you say could be the steps for moving from being reliant on funds to becoming sustainable?
That's always every entrepreneur, I think, social entrepreneur, it should be always at the forefront of their mind. And some of those ways of not being grant dependent is to not be grant dependent in the first place. Explore opportunities, explore partnerships, explore, I was saying earlier on, different income, diversify your income portfolio, have business relationships with local authorities or central government, those who want to buy in your service, have business-to-business relationships, explore partnerships, explore doing business with other organisations where you're able to deliver an element of that service. When you diversify your portfolio, your income only relying on one source of income. So in terms of strategies, I'd say all parts of that strategy, people do business with people. It's important to remember that. We're talking about structures and frameworks of business in abstract, but the people who manage those structures and those systems are people. People do business with people.
Very important.
Don't do business with a business. You're doing business with the person behind the business. So relationship management is absolutely paramount. Are you pleasant? Do you have integrity? Do you have good credibility? All those things are just as important as having a strong, robust system in place.
I totally agree with that. A lot of business happens in the business arena. It's the relationships actually that are the bridges. It's who you know, even though sometimes it doesn't sound like a nice thing. Oh, it's about who you know, but that's the reality of life. It's your network, it's your connections, it's your credibility, and So
I mean, people are. I'm some of my clients, for example, they'll say, "Oh, Claudine, do you know a web designer?" I'm going to go straight to my phone book. I've got 5 web designers. This one's good at this. This one specialises in that. That one specialises in this. Let's make a phone call and see who's going to give you the best quote. That's relationship.
Definitely.
I've got other organisations who are asking me for different things. It's about relationship, which is why networking events become very, very important.
Very important.
You may meet 5 people. You're not necessarily going to do business with all 5 people within the first 6 months. It could be a year. It could be 3 or 4 years down the road when you remember, I remember I met this person at this event a couple of years ago. Let me call them up, which is why it's important to be visible on different platforms.
Yeah, because I just like knowing what people do, because other people that you can connect. They might not even be people who you would do business with directly, but there'll be people who you can connect with other people, and later on they can connect you with other people. So yeah, so it's just being open, being visible, like you said, being around, let people know who you are and what you do. Okay. Let me see. I guess okay, so maybe this question, if you can answer it briefly,
Okay.
is basically what steps do you need to take to be funding or investor ready? And what do funders or investors look for in a venture that they expect to fund?
Excellent question. I mean, everybody's looking for a return on their investment.
Definitely.
Everybody, whether it's a social business or a profit-making business, everyone is looking for a return. And some of the simple sort of first initial questions will be around how sustainable is the business? Is there a market for this? Do people actually want to buy this product or service that you're proposing to develop? Is the business based around you as an individual? Can it operate with or without you? Can it be systemized? Those are the initial questions I think people will be looking at. Where is the market for this business? How many people actually, through research or through the laws of supply and demand, how many people actually want this product or service? And ultimately, what's the level of investment required and what is the forecasted return? I think it's very important also to note that when we're talking about this, we are talking about your ability to communicate your vision. Because when we're talking about business, sometimes we're talking about something that doesn't actually exist. You're talking about your business plan that might be on paper, but it isn't actually tangible. There's nothing physical to show for it. This is also about your ability to articulate to potential investors that the vision that you see has the ability to generate income, and you have thought this through to the minutest detail. You've thought through every strategy, every system, every contingency plan, every style of management or leadership that's required, every skill that could be required to take the business from A to B, every shared goal, and everything that you could possibly think of. It's your ability to communicate that to potential investors as to whether or not they will invest. I mean, you've probably seen programs on TV like Dragon's Den in the UK. They have something very similar in the Caribbean and in the US. It's called Shark Tank. And if you listen to the questions that the investors are asking, they just want to know, what's the return on the investment going to be? How do you know 50,000 people want this particular product? It's more than a whim. It's more than, oh, I've had an idea. Prove that your idea is viable. Prove that the masses want your idea. And sometimes I think we get quite hung up on our idea because we believe that it was the vision from the Lord. It can't be changed. Well, you buy it then.
Yeah, you need to test your ideas, test it on the market that you want to go into. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's part of the market research process, testing your ideas and tweaking it so that it fits to the demand of your potential customers.
It can be a long process, and I think people who are just venturing into business think, okay, I'm going to start a business and it will just take off, but it's a process. And what you spoke about being investment ready, I think that's a very it can be daunting. The process can be quite daunting, having to go through that. But I think it's quite good, as it gives you a very good foundation to see if your business, if that idea is worth running with, and also it helps you put the necessary structures in place and helps you think through the process, like Claudine actually said.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think we're coming to an end.
Okay.
I'm close to an end of the program, and I'm just turning back to my list here. Okay. So so what I do at this point is to ask you to give the ladies a bit of wisdom. So if you had one piece of wisdom to leave with the ladies, on this program, what would that be?
If at first you don't succeed, keep on trying. If you're looking for an opportunity, sometimes we've got to create our own opportunities. And in that creation process, I believe the preparation is key. Prepare yourselves, organize yourselves, manage your time, manage your emotions, manage all those things around us that could cause distraction, minimize those distractions, and follow one course until successful. I think sometimes we give up because, I don't know if you've ever heard of the book 3 Feet from Gold. Sometimes we give up when we are literally 3 feet from gold because we've run out of patience, we've run out of time management skills, we've run out of organization skills. We've allowed the loud things in life to take control, when sometimes the loud things are not actually the things that have priority. It's just that they're the most noisy, but not actually the most profitable. And when I say profitable, I don't only mean in monetary terms. Sometimes there are books that we can read, sometimes there are people that we can connect with, and you may not have the finance to connect with those people, especially if they are abroad. But you can read their books, you can log on to some of their online platforms, you can log on to some of the other, the technology has allowed us to, to do so much, and it's cut out so many things, and it's made the world such a smaller place. I think my one wisdom key would really be to find those opportunities and leverage them, because for as much as you women may be doing this is more than about you. It's about the next generation. It's about your children's children.
Okay.
With your grandchildren, to say, this is what I did when you were a child.
Okay, thank you. The screen froze a bit while you were talking, but it was just
okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a bit of time to tell our guests how they can connect with you.
Okay. I am contactable on my website, which is www.Claudine Reid, which is my name, claudinereid.co.uk. You can also connect with me on Facebook, my name, Claudine Reid. You can connect with me on Twitter, my name again, @ClaudineReid1. And if you'd like more information about my company, which is called PJ's Community Services, you can connect with me at pjsgroup.co.uk. And within that group, we have a suite of services, recruitment, training, and women's empowerment workshop sessions that we provide for our clients.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've come to an end of our program, and before we actually close, I just want to say a big thank you to Claudine for all that. And I believe it's been very valuable. Like I said, it's a lot she's put in that hour. So it's something you might have to think about, meditate on, and also connect with her. Now, before we leave, I'd just like to just give you information about my website again. It's www.kingdomwealthcreation.com. And I have a gift for you if you're not already on my mailing list, or if you haven't received this ebook. It's called Discover the Real Secret, How to Make Money, How to Make More Money whilst freeing up your time to live your God-given dreams. It's a wonderful book. A lot of people, it's free. It's a downloadable book. A lot of people have actually given loads of good reviews about it. So yeah, get your copy, and please pass that link on to other people who might need to make more money and free up their time to live their God-given dreams. So thank you once again for joining us, and we'll see you next month when we have our next program on women, wisdom, and wealth.